Hey guys, it's Ginny Silver. We are live today with Tax Day, April 15th. This is a really difficult day if you are self employed. I know that a lot of you are filing self employed taxes for the very first time, or maybe you're just still not used to the process yet. Maybe it's still a really difficult process and you're 10 years in. It always seems to be a really difficult day when you file your self employed taxes because there is so much you have to handle, so much you have to plan for, oftentimes, so much you have to pay. And you seem to get hit with it all at once, whether you are ready or not. So I figured I have not done a live stream in a very long time. Figured I would pop on here real quick for a short stream, see if any of you have any questions that you want to throw out about self employed income taxes, whether you're a sole proprietor, independent contractor, single member LLC. I also wanted to address with you some important things to know that I wish someone would have told me my first year as a self employed individual. Okay, I have Bonnie. I think you're the only one here so far. It's really good to hear from you, Bonnie. I hope you're doing really well. Thanks for popping in and saying hi. Michael is here. Hi, Michael. OMG, Ginny, you're doing a live stream. It's definitely been a minute. I want to check in with you. And how's the family doing? Thank you. It's been a long time since I've done a live stream. Honestly, my tech for my live streams kind of fell apart, and having the most likely undiagnosed ADHD brain that I have went shoved everything in a closet and kind of gave up on doing live streams for a while. Luckily, I found the right cord, got things up and running. I don't know if I'm back doing regular live streams or not. We'll find out. Okay, let's see who else is here. KJ, hi, I hope you're doing well. So, first, I want to address that if you are filing self employed income taxes for the first time, there's a few important things that you need to know. Number one, you're going to be including a form which should be populated automatically if you're using a tax software, or your tax professional will do this for you. It's going to be a Schedule C if you are a sole proprietor or if you're a single member LLC that has not elected, chosen, and filed that extra paperwork to be taxed as an S Corp. It's going to be a Schedule C, and it's going to show all of your profits and losses from your business. Now, the important thing to know is that you're going to be charged not just state, not just federal income taxes, but you're going to be charged what is called self-employment tax. Self-employment tax equates to 15.3%, and that goes for Medicare and Social Security. So it's an additional tax that not all people know that they need to plan for. Lowrider, let me pull this up on the screen. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Let me know if you have no question attached there. Let me know if you have a question you want me to address. Now, that 15.3% basically is worked into that tax calculation for you as someone who's self-employed, because you are not someone who is going to be paying your taxes for FICA, Medicare, Social Security, etc., through a payroll software. As someone who's self-employed, those are all calculated separately and they are due at tax time. So it can be really difficult to pay that tax bill if you don't know what to expect. If you are not anticipating that additional 15.3%, that can be a huge amount that you likely didn't budget for. Now, there is no owner's manual on being self-employed. So who tells you these things? Well, your dedicated late night hours of researching self-employment, YouTube content creators, and cryptic government resources that you had to find yourself. So this can be a big impact on you if you are not planning for that additional 15.3%. So what do you do if you can't pay it? My first year that I was self-employed, I did not know what to expect. I was quite young. I think I was probably like 21 the first year that I had self-employed income. And I had researched, but not thoroughly enough, and especially not thoroughly enough when it comes to taxes. Now, I owed the first year that I made real money about $25,000 in taxes. I had not paid into estimated taxes. I didn't know what to expect. And I definitely was not expecting to owe that much because I had not accounted for self-employed income tax. I had to take out an IRS installment agreement, which, if you are someone that is worried about your tax bill, let's say you just submitted your taxes today, you turned in everything, and you were alarmed at the amount that you have to pay. Perhaps you didn't set aside enough tax money to pay that. An IRS installment agreement is going to be something that you can do to kind of dig your way out of that hole without accruing massive amounts of penalties and interest while you are trying to pay that tax bill. So the IRS installment agreements, I'll pull it up in just a second. The IRS installment agreements still will charge you a little bit of interest, but the interest amount that it will charge you is less because you have prearranged that tax bill to be broken out and paid at exact dates. These payments are going to be due at least quarterly, and you can pay into it as often as you want to get out of that tax debt faster. But it will sign you up for a quarterly payment plan. There's a few different options for how you want to do it, but it's going to lower the amount of interest and penalties that you are required to pay to the IRS. So the worst possible thing to do if you're self-employed, you can't pay your tax bill, the worst possible thing to do is going to be to ignore it and wait until you have the money. What you want to do instead is you want to go to irs.gov and you want to search for installment agreement. It should also pop up if you have done a search for payment plan. Let me pull it up right here. You're going to see multiple Ginnies for a minute. Okay, so over here at irs.gov is where you can find all the information on payment plans and installment agreements here. So here they have a pay now option if you, for example, set up a payment plan and you want to get out of it early. They have a short-term payment plan, and then they have a long-term payment plan, which they call an installment agreement. What I did is I did an installment agreement my first year over a decade ago when I was overwhelmed by my tax bill. It does charge you a small setup fee here, but most likely what you're going to owe in income taxes will be assessed a higher interest rate, and this small setup fee is going to more than make sense for that. So if you're having trouble and you're thinking about how you're going to get by, make sure that you look up installment agreements. Okay, let me check over here before I go on. Candace, hi Candace. If we have a full-time job and this would be something we do on the side, would we still have to pay that? Great question. I have a lot of videos on my channel homepage that cover this exact question. So if you leave this live stream and you want to review that older video content that's a little more presented less chaotically than a live stream, you can search for that information on my homepage. Yes, you do. There is a threshold that you have to, that the IRS states that if you make $400 or more in net self-employed income, you are going to be required to file and pay income taxes on that self-employed income. So this includes things that you in your mind might think of as a hobby or a side hustle. It might be something that you're testing the waters and you've made a little bit of money, but not very much. That is all seen by the IRS as self-employed income. If you have $400 or more earned in net self-employment income, which means your income that you keep after all of those expenses. So let's say you bought materials or products that you then resold. It would be whatever you make after you calculate out your costs and your expenses. If that net income is $400 or more, you are required to claim that income on your tax return. And then, yes, pay that self-employed income tax. So absolutely, that is going to be required. Christy, hi Christy. Your YouTube channel has been so helpful in forming our multi-member LLC in California. Thank you so much for your expertise. I'm so glad to hear that. You're so welcome. What type of business do you have? What did you start? I'm very curious, and congratulations on starting your business. Okay, I just realized I did not answer Michael's question. Sorry, Michael. It's a personal question. How's the family doing? The family is good. My children are huge. They are how old are my kids? They're 9 and 6. They are big. Calvin is getting big. They are doing musical theater and loving it, and it's wonderful. Okay, let's see what we have next. We did that one. Christy's replying. You filed for your LLC 1219 and received paperwork on 1/2/24. Is our $800 LLC fee waived this year, or do we owe $800 by 4/15? Okay, so if you filed on 12/19 and received paperwork on 1/2, it's going to depend on exactly what date your LLC was actually made an LLC by the Secretary of State. So look on your articles of organization the paperwork that you got back from the Secretary of State. You can also use their business lookup tool on the Secretary of State's website. You can click on search for business, find your business, and it's going to tell you there on public record what date your LLC was officially started. So sending in paperwork, if you mail it, if you use a service to do it, there might be a few days worth of delay where you have kind of started sending the paperwork, but it hasn't officially been formed yet. You want to make sure that your LLC was formed in 2023. If it was formed in 2023, then the state of California still had legislation that stated that LLCs would have the first year of their annual $800 LLC tax waived. Now, that is not the first 12 months, it's the first calendar year. So when 2023 ends, then that benefit ends. It doesn't carry over into the next year. So if you formed your LLC and the date on there says 2023, then you would not need to pay that $800 LLC tax today, this April, because you are waived of that first payment of it from that last year. Now, if your formation date was in 2024 and you missed that cutoff, that benefit does not continue. So you want to make sure that you pay it in that case, because if you pay it and it is delinquent, then the franchise tax board will come after you. Personal story of how Ginny has messed up and is not perfect. There were not several years. There was one year where I did not, a long time ago, didn't realize that I had to send in that payment separately. When you have a California LLC and you use a service to file your taxes that is a DIY service like TurboTax or something you do yourself, they do not send the LLC payment for you automatically as they do your federal and state income taxes. You have to pay it separately. I had sent in the money, but it was kind of just floating around with the franchise tax board, and it had not connected with my form because I didn't mail in the form. It was a big mess. Now, I didn't find this out until a few years later, and I was quite confused. So you want to make sure that, number one, you know when your LLC was formed and you check on if it was within that date range or not. Number two, you want to follow up with the franchise tax board yourself and make sure that that you are in fact correct, so that you do not accrue penalties and interest that can accrue over a period of years while they process that you made a mistake. It can take them several years to actually find out that you made a mistake. And all that time, you can be accruing interest, which you are obligated to pay. Okay, let's see what's next. Candace, if we have a full-time job and this would be something we do, okay, I already did that one. Thank you. For some reason, my comments got a little slow. Okay, and I think this is my last one right now. Christy, a Shopify store in the process of launching. Okay, congratulations, Christy. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so if you have your LLC, if you have filed your income taxes, the next thing that I want to make sure that you know about is that for those of you that have an LLC, you're going to be obligated to pay what I just spoke about, that $800 annual LLC tax, unless you formed during the period of time when it was waived for that first year. Now, you want to make sure that you are paying that tax separately, and you want to make sure that you either mail in that check today, postmarked today, because it is due today, or submit it online. It's a little safer to do it online today because you are at the end of the line. If there's any delays, any problems, it's going to be technically late. So what you can do is you can head over to the franchise tax board and you can take care of that. Let me show you the screen right here. When you file your income taxes using a software like TurboTax, it's going to calculate out, populate the form for you. And in most cases, it will submit the form. In some cases, it won't, depending on your tax software. Number one, make sure that you know if your tax software is actually filing the form to the California Franchise Tax Board for your LLC tax return. Make sure that you do your due diligence to check on your tax software, see if it actually files that form for you or if it just generates that form. If it just generates it for you, but it does not e-file it, then you need to print that form and mail it in. Make sure you get it postmarked today. Number two, mailing in that form is not the only thing you need to do. You need to also pay that $800 tax. So this is where you can do it online. If you head over to ftb.ca.gov/pay, and you'll see this screen, and this is where you can select a bank account or a credit card. And then it's going to ask you if you are filing a business payment or personal payment. How do I get back? Remove. Okay. So make sure that you do those few things. The next thing that I want you guys to know about your self-employed income taxes is that some of you are going to have another tax bill that you might not be expecting also due today. If you filed your income taxes and you expect to owe $1,000 or more next year for your business, you are then required to pay estimated quarterly income taxes. Estimated quarterly income taxes are going to be what you think you're going to owe next year, broken down into 4 equal payments and paid quarterly. This is required if you think you're going to owe $1,000 or more. It is not made that clear in softwares such as TurboTax. What are the other ones that people are using? It's the only example that comes to mind. It's not that clear. Your tax software will create the payment vouchers for you, and they should be inside of your tax return when you download the full lengthy document. It is Form 1040-ES for estimated sales tax. And those are going to be in there. It's going to say the payment amount, and you can print them out and mail them in. You can also pay it online at ios.gov. Now, you need to make sure that you are overestimating what you think you are going to need to pay because you will be taxed penalties and interest if you underpay on those estimated payments. If you come out next year, you go into tax time, you make your tax, not making it, you file your tax return. If you owe more next year and you didn't pay estimated taxes, that additional balance is going to have a penalty slapped onto it. So the goal with estimated income taxes is that if you think you're going to owe $1,000 or more and you paid your income taxes this year, then the goal is to guess what you're going to owe, break it into those 4 payments, and use those 1040-ES vouchers to mail in or submit that payment online. Okay, let's take a look in here and see who else is commenting. Debbie, hi Debbie. How are you, Debbie? I hope you're doing well. Super to see you today. That big Mike spelled like K-E like it's a person. Yeah, I think it's usually off screen when I'm talking. It's big and distracting. Okay, Christy, is there a chance that in your first year you would be paying $800 back to back, depending on when you filed? One that is due 4 months after forming the LLC, and one due again in April at tax time. Okay, so this is where you want to make sure that you are checking in with a tax professional because there's so many places that you can make mistakes within your business taxes on your own, and you kind of just want to have someone to be able to double check that with. If you are, so you were formed, was it 2023 or 2024? Because that makes a difference for you. Will there be a time when you have to file it twice? If you formed like at the end of one year and it didn't have that benefit that I just spoke about recently, where the $800 was waived, then potentially you might need to, depending on what month it was formed. Okay. All right. And I'm all caught up with comments. So if you are watching, you have a tax question. I am not a tax professional. I am just someone who helps business owners get pointed in the right direction with resources. Feel free to drop your comments. There are no dumb questions when it comes to self-employed income taxes. And I will try to point you in the right direction in terms of government resources, information from the IRS, from the Franchise Tax Board, etc. Okay, the last thing that we want to talk about is that we want to talk about. I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I want to talk about it. The last thing I want to talk about is that there is a big confusion, and I already addressed this very briefly, but it is quite confusing when you first start your business, understanding and planning ahead for what is going to be due at tax time. It can be incredibly complicated to keep your head above water with a new business. It can be incredibly complicated to know how much to set aside for taxes, how much to plan for self-employment tax, federal, state income tax, sales tax, and estimated taxes, not to mention that LLC tax if you're a limited liability company. So it is incredibly important to make sure that you, number one, know your tax obligations. It is not going to be in your best interest to skip filing taxes if you're someone that is exploring a new hobby and making money off of it. If you're someone that is trying to figure out if you want to dive in full-time or not, it's all taxable. As long as you reach that $400 or more threshold and you are making $400 or more in net self-employment income, then you are required to file and claim it on a tax return. Now, there is quite a lot of confusion about the $400 rule versus another different tax rule, the $600 tax rule. The IRS states that if you earn that $400 or more, you're required to claim it on a self-employed tax return. But there's a different rule. And there was a lot of talk about this other rule. And now it's kind of getting mixed in and confused with the $400 rule. The $600 tax rule, if you work as an independent contractor, if you are working for a business, if you're providing your services, that business is required to send you a 1099 tax form stating how much they paid you and your tax identification number. And you're required to input that 1099 on your tax return. And they're required to send a copy of it to the IRS. Now, if they pay you $600 or more within that tax year, then they're required to issue you that form. Many independent contractors and many people who are self-employed may not have received those 1099s. Perhaps you did not meet that $600 threshold, or perhaps the business is not performing their own, meeting up with their own tax obligations. For whatever reason, you didn't receive a tax form for that income. Now, the big question that I am getting a lot of is, am I still required to claim that income? Because number one, it doesn't meet that $600 threshold. And number two, they didn't send me the tax form. And number three, I would prefer not to be taxed on it. The answer here is that yes, in order to avoid tax evasion, you technically are required to submit that self-employed income on your tax return if you have earned $400 or more. Regardless of if anyone sends you a tax form, it is still your own obligation to do it. So for those of you that are independent contractors that have had this question about 1099s, The answer is yes, you're still going to include that income on your tax return. Okay. We're going to ban Bozo the Clown. Can't can't do it. There it goes. Okay, let's see. Christy's telling me when she formed her business, 12/19/2023. Okay, so if that's your formation date, then technically, according to here, I can pull this up. Let me find where it is on the Secretary of State's. It's on the Franchise Tax Board. Do they still have it here? There it is. Okay, I'm going to share my screen real quick. So the question is, or the cool, whoa, where is it? The question was, if I formed my LLC in 2023, do I have to pay the $800 annual LLC tax right now in April? So exceptions to the first year annual tax. For tax years beginning on or after January 1st, 2021 and before January 1st, 2024, LLCs that organize, register, or file with the Secretary of State to do business in California are not subject to the annual $800 tax for their first tax year. So not for like the full 12 months after that, but just for the taxable year. So that means that if you formed your business before that cutoff and you are now paying taxes for 2023, right? It's April 2024 right now, but we're not paying 2024 taxes right now. We're paying 2023 taxes. So for 2023 tax year, you do not owe that LLC $800 tax because you formed within that cutoff range. So you should not be obligated to pay that $800 fee. Now, it is always best because let's face it, I'm a weird person on the internet, and you can choose. I have, if you are well aware of my channel, my accolades, my history, etc., then you've developed a certain level of trust for me, but I'm still a weirdo on the internet. So it is always best to contact the Franchise Tax Board yourself, confirm all information that you believe to be true, and get it in writing if you have any questions about that. And that goes for any information that I provide you, goes for any information that anyone on the internet provides you. Unless it comes directly from the government source, you always want to confirm it with that source, get it in writing, and keep it on hand in case any problems come about. This is fresh in my mind because I was just answering comments about this. There is a plethora of people creating content for Shopify specifically, telling users not to file income taxes, telling them not to get seller's permits, telling them not to pay sales tax. And these videos are going viral. They're getting lots of views, and the comments on them are just a huge stream of people saying how grateful they are for the help. Thank you for the help. Thank you for your expertise. And then they are not following up with doing their research. They're trusting those opinions on the internet, which are in many cases not providing actual information. Now, that person likely has a disclaimer in their YouTube video saying that it's not supposed to be tax advice. But the problem is that they are misinforming those large groups of people that are taking that advice and not doing their own research with those sources. So make sure that regardless of if you get your information from me or from someone else, that you are researching whatever you find. Use it, the information available on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you're getting information for business setup, business taxes, etc. Use that information as a resource and a tool, and then go find the primary source yourself and make sure that you are following up with that. Okay, Christy, you're very welcome. Okay, you guys, so I have covered, what did I cover today? We covered installment agreements, how to get a payment plan from the IRS if you are stuck in a bad place with your taxes. We covered estimated quarterly income taxes that as someone who's self-employed, if you had a tax bill and you paid your taxes, if you expect to owe $1,000 or more next year, you have to pay estimated quarterly income taxes right away starting now, and the first of those installments is due today. So if you think that you have filed your taxes and you're done, unfortunately you might have that estimated first quarter payment also due today. So super important that you make sure that you check and see if you're obligated to pay those estimated quarterly payments, because the first one is due today. We also talked about the $800 LLC tax and that being waived and the date that it was waived until. And we also talked about the $400 rule for having to claim self-employment tax on your tax return and the $600 1099 rule. Those are the main things that I wanted to cover today to make sure that you, whether you are new or seasoned self-employed individual, are well informed. So I want to make sure that I give you a chance to get in any last questions that you may have before I sign off of this live. So there is no stupid questions. Feel free to type in whatever self-employed business tax question you might have. If you're a long-term follower of my channel, you can feel free to type in whatever comment. If you please say hi if you're tuning in before I sign off. I need water. Okay. Your dearest Patty says, how can I contribute to Social Security or Medi-Cal through paying my taxes? Okay, so great question. So when you are self-employed, you are going to be filing a Schedule C included in your tax return. The Schedule C includes all of your information for your business, and it includes your income and then your operating expenses, your deductions, etc. That Schedule C shows what your net income is from your self-employment. So it's going to show what your take-home pay was after all your expenses and deductions were removed from it. That net income is then going to be subject to what is called self-employment tax. Self-employment tax equals 15.3% of your taxable self-employed income. That additional tax is where Social Security and Medicare is. Let me pull up the screen that shows you this from the IRS. Okay, so right here, so self-employed income tax. If we scroll down, then it explains right here in this paragraph here, it explains exactly what self-employed income tax is. It explains that this is where you get Social Security and Medicare. This is the tax that covers that. So that's a great question. Okay, let me get rid of this. So when you pay your income taxes, that self-employment tax is going to be calculated into your tax return as long as you claimed that income on your Schedule C. And then you're going to pay that tax bill when you pay your income taxes, federal and state. That self-employed tax will be calculated automatically and included in there. Okay, Debbie Hall, more lives. Debbie, you know, the lives are hard for me these days. Yeah, they are. I'll try to consider doing more lives. Thank you. How are you, Debbie? I hope you're doing well. What's new with you? Debbie says, how is the new property coming along? It's good. I absolutely love our home. We to fill in those of you that aren't aware, don't know me. When was it? Oh, like 2.5 years ago, I moved to a family compound with my sister, my brother-in-law, my little family, and then my dad on acreage, and it's wonderful. We see all sorts of creatures and animals constantly all day that wander through here. We're out in the middle of hiking trails and forest, and it's wonderful. Thank you, Debbie, for asking. How are you, Debbie? Niraj, hi. I formed my LLC last May in 2023. When would my $800 LLC tax be due? I understand it's free for the first year, but wasn't sure if it was 12 months from when the LLC was formed. Okay, great. So we already addressed this, but I'm going to address it again. It's a great question. So LLC fees were waived. There was legislation passed that if you formed your LLC between specific dates ranging from 2021 up until the end of 2023 only, then you had the first year of your annual $800 LLC tax waived. And I'll show you that on screen in just a second. Now that ended and does not continue going forward in 2024. So for those of you that just formed your LLC in 2024, unfortunately, that first year is no longer waived. So Niraj formed his LLC in May 2023. You were within that cutoff of not having to pay that first year of $800 LLC tax. Right now, we are in April 2024, but we're not filing 2024 taxes. We're filing 2023 taxes. Because you have that benefit, your first year is going to be waived. So you would not pay that $800 annual LLC tax right now because we're paying 2023 taxes. The first time you pay it would be next year at tax time, because that first year will be ended. Now, it is not 12 months that you're excused from paying that. It is just the taxable year. So the taxable year has ended. It ended December 31st, and now we're in the next year. So you are going to have to pay it this next April, not this year, but next year. Okay, sorry, I just joined. May have answered it already. No problem. It is a common and important question. Okay, you guys. So if you have any other questions, feel free to type them in. If you are a regular to the channel, make sure you say hi so I know that you came by. I am going to be signing off in just a minute as long as there are not any additional questions. Now, for those of you that need more assistance, that need more support with your California small businesses, I am going to grab this link real quick.